Hi, Rex here at RW Mods. Today we got a pretty cool engine to look at. Probably, yes, this is the most expensive engine that I've reviewed. It's in a OS Speed box, but made by OS. This is the Maxima B2R, made by OS, and this is the JTP edition. Let's open it up here. It does say on the box it has the OS Speed part numbers and stuff there, but it comes in the traditional foam or plastic that OS comes in. We have the engine, glow plug, P3, an extra 6mm restrictor, and a user's manual, some stickers, things like that. There's the engine. Really nice looking engine. Not sure how they do this part number, but it's 001 of 21, so I don't know if this is the first one made in 21 or not. But it's got the JTP logo there, the Jared Tebo products logo there. Maxima makes fuel, RC fuel, and they're also known in like the motocross and probably snowmobile and different things for making things for motocross, a lot of cleaners and oils and oil filters and different products. And they started making Nitro fuel a few years ago. I have no idea. I've never used Maxima fuels. Probably pretty good stuff because Maxima is known for having really good stuff. So this is kind of a limited edition type stuff. They only make so many a year, and this engine I actually paid full price through Jared Tebo, the JTP. And so I paid full price for this. These from Jared are $550 with shipping. And this one, Jared had a couple left. He gets them in small batches, so kind of the thing about these is they're a little harder to come by. You got to get them right from Jared. There's a place over in Europe that sells one that doesn't have the JTP logo. Not the JTP edition, but so they're a little hard to get, a little, you know, and that kind of, the price is a little more up there with that. So this is a 16.28 bore, 16.8 stroke. So this is similar to the original Speed Spec 2, the XEB Speed Spec 2. And I was watching the races yesterday. I didn't watch the whole mains and stuff, but these engines are ran by well, in the top 25 Nitro buggy rankings. You got Mayfield, Tebo, Cavalieri, Robert Battier, and Spencer Rivkin all in the top 25 that run this engine. There is another version with the lower head. I don't know which engine, you know, each guy uses, but I don't know how popular the low head are. So that's 5 in the top 25. Plus there's some other, you know, there's OS branded engines in the top 25, and then there's like the Block and a couple other brands, LRP. So OS kind of dominates the top 25. I think Reds is the next engine. They actually have 6 in the top 25, which is probably the most of a single brand, but if you wanted to bunch up all the OS, different branded OSs, OS would have the more. But Reds has 6 of them in the top 25, so that's pretty good. It did come with the rubber bands on the carb. I don't know if this was something Jared put on there, if he does it for his customers, or, but it did come with that on there. I didn't put that on there. So I guess That's about it on looking at it. Let's get it apart and see what's inside and see what's different with this one from a regular OS speed. Okay, we got everything apart on this Maxima engine. Like I said, everything on this kind of looks pretty much XZ. You'll see similarities between all the OS engines. Guess I didn't take the sleeve out. We'll take that out. I did have this part previously, and when I pulled the sleeve out, it kind of drug all the way out. I could feel it. You know, usually once you get on a new engine, especially, it's oiled, and once you break that initial, once it starts moving, it comes out pretty easy, and it dragged out all the way. So I did a little looking in there, and the block had this scratch right down the, if you see a scratch right down there. So these are hand modified at Maxima, so I don't believe it's done at OS. I think they do it at Maxima. I'm not sure. Someone at OS could do it for all I know, but so they're a little bit hand modified. So one of the cuts, they didn't deburr everything, and so when it was put together, there was a little bit of a scuff on the one side, so it didn't slide right in. You know, I deburred it when I put it back together. That's the way they're supposed to slide in. So you could feel it grabbing, dragging as it was as I was pulling it in. So when somebody assembled it, they felt that when they put it together, and they should have stopped. As a modifier, you gotta deburr the sleeve really good to make sure that it slides in nice and stuff. So that's one kind of, I mean, you'd think when you buy a $550 engine, everything's gonna be perfect, but that was one problem I found with it. But not a big deal. This isn't I can't hardly even feel that groove. Not a huge deal. It's not going to affect performance. I did have someone message me and said they wanted this engine, and I told them about that, and they trusted my opinion that it wasn't going to hurt anything. But so that was one little bummer about this engine. So the standard XEB case, this one does have a ceramic bearing. The blue sealed OS bearings are some of the best. They have a nice thick seal there. It lasts good. The dirt doesn't erode that away and let dirt in. It's a good single sealed bearing. They're open, no seal on the inside, but with a good seal on the outside, it keeps the dirt out, so that's a good deal. So pretty standard what you're going to find on any OS speed with that. The sleeve, this is where you see some differences. We got some hand modifying here. These are done by hand. I don't see anything done internally. None of the chrome is off internally there, but we got a couple extra cuts there, some cuts there. Nothing too extreme, which is good. You don't really want anything too extreme. I did, one of the ports, I think it was, what was it? Let me line that up here. So the exhaust. So it would have been right in this area where there was a little bit of a burr. And so that was what was scratching the case when it got assembled. Piston looks pretty much stock OS speed. I did see on a European site that the piston was lighter on the Maxima engine, but I don't see anywhere in there where it's cut or lightened. It looks like, you know, the factory OS cuts in there. This would be the 29.5 millimeter rod. OS used to use 30 millimeter rods exclusively. Then they went to the 29.5, and it signifies it with a dimple. If you see a dimple, don't put one without a dimple in there. You're gonna probably, your piston's gonna hit the head. It is possible, if you can only get one rod, or vice versa, to make it work, but you need to, if you want a 30mm rod in a with an engine that takes a 29.5, you'd have to shim up the sleeve 0.5 mm. So these rods are good and strong, nearly no problem durability with these at all. Here's another part where we see some hand modifying. Is the crank has some blending. This one does have a tungsten weight, just like the Speed, the DLC coating. Really good coating. And then we got some blending there. It doesn't look like a lot of material taken out of that. Looks like it's more of a polished. Do kind of see a little bit of a burr right there. Kind of can catch it with my finger. A little bit of a burr there. And then some blending on the crank window. I don't really see that a lot of materials are moved though. And then when we go through the numbers, I didn't really see any timing number difference between this and like a Spec 2 or FP01 or whatever. So I don't think they really did change the crank timing much with that. Head button, this is kind of the newer style. OS always has really good machining. This has been kind of the last couple of years, the head button, they used to have more of a dome shape to everything, and now they kind of go to a smaller dome, a little flatter here. I'm not as much of a fan of this style. This one I'll probably do a little cutting on put a little angle in that for the guy. It does have 2 head shims. The standard, most OSs use one aluminum, one brass shim, and that's what it has here. So the back plate, pretty standard OS back plate here. Nothing too different there. The head, of course, one of the other changes is they actually have the logo kind of to the side, which is kind of cool. One of my pet peeves is a lot of OS engines that, the regular OS Speed engines, the logos face towards the wing, and I don't know anybody that puts their wing stickers on facing backwards either. So I always like to have the logos forward. But with OS, a lot of engines you can't do that if it has a cutout for the exhaust. So that's when you take the head off, and some of the newer ones have cuts on both sides, but this one only has it on the back. So that goes towards the exhaust, give you a little room there. So the logo on this one does face the side, which is kind of cool. I think that's acceptable. And then, but it's kind of part of my pet peeve. One of my pet peeves is when the logos face the rear. That's the way the OS Speeds are. So some of the heads you can turn around, other ones you can't, but most of the newer ones you can't. And it's a lightened head. Nice step down here to keep the CG low, the head lower and stuff. These things run pretty cool. I don't have any personal experience with the low head, the super low head, but I think, at times, certain situations they aren't ideal. So it does keep the CG a little lower. But so look at the carb here. Like I said, I had these rubber bands on it. I'm not sure if Jared put these on or if they were done at Maxima or whatever. So this is the 21J carb. This is the good OS carb. They did mess around with some of the engines, the B2101 for instance. They messed around with a little bit smaller through diameter, and I haven't ran all the different configurations, but most guys that are diehard OS guys like this 21J. It's just the one that they can tune easy and they're not erratic and stuff. So they've been long low speed needle for quite a while. Try and get that. So you can see the long low speed needle. These things tune really good. I got a Spec 2 in my buggy that I haven't driven for a while, but I really like the way these tune too. And the newer ones, they did away. They got a different insulator on them now, which is really a lot better. They used to have like a little washer that went down in there before you put them in, and you had to make sure you had that in there. And they changed the insulator. This looks to be a little bit harder, more like a Delrin. So the other stuff looked almost like a little clearish, kind of clearish material. It was a little bit softer, and so the pinch bolt dug into it a little bit, and then sometimes you'd pull the carb and the insulator would stay in there, and I think these are quite a bit better. You don't have to worry about that. One thing that I did kind of notice was that it doesn't have the newer carb pull that has a set screw on both sides and stuff, but not a big deal. But I just did notice that it didn't have the newest carb pull on there. So that's about it on looking at that. I did notice when I was looking at prices, I usually like to kind of go through what you can buy prices for, and I thought $550 was more than what you're going to pay for a comparable just OS speed engine. I thought they were in like the $450 range and stuff, but this being kind of a limited edition, kind of a nostalgia thing, or not nostalgia, but this is kind of a neat, to get them through Jared, and they're kind of a limited edition type stuff. $550 to someone that wants one's probably not a big deal, but I did notice. I looked at A-Main, and they don't carry this one, but they carry similar speed engines, and the price on like a B2103, they're a different bore and stroke, but a similar price range engine. They were like $740 some, and then I know that Horizon and Tower or whatever are the importers, so I looked on there, and they had changed their prices too. I think just in the last few days. So a comparable engine to this in OS speed is almost $750. The Adam Drake engine too. I'm gonna probably do another video on try and do some investigation on why OS just increased their engine prices. I do know like Argus increased theirs, but they were increasing them like $10, $20. This is like over a $200 increase or more. I think the Adam Drake, they had it listed as all of them with a pipe, like $930 with a pipe. And I don't know if that's going to be OS's prices going forward. I think some people are going to be looking at different brands. It's crazy, like to think $750 for an engine. I thought $550 for this was was enough, but I'm not planning on running it. Someone already messaged me about buying it for me, so it's already sold. This one is, but it's crazy. That would probably make me quit racing too if I had to spend $750. But there's some other options out there and stuff. So the next highest engine I did was probably the Reds SV. I think that was just under $500, around $450, $500 range. So yeah, you can spend quite a bit on an engine, but this is probably the most expensive one I have done. Okay, we'll go through some timing numbers on this Maxima JTP B2R. It's, like I said before, it's a 16.28 bore, 16.8 stroke, and that's probably the most common bore and stroke amongst all the manufacturers. The standard long stroke. The blowdown on this one was 40. Induction open 150. Induction closed 66. For a total of 216, and those numbers are pretty typical of most OS engines, between 215 to 220 total timing on the induction crank timing. Blowdown I've seen higher on some. I actually looked back on at least 3 previous similar bore and stroke OS engines. I think the FP01, an older, I think it's the Spec 2 in my buggy, which is a fairly old engine. Looked at all those, and the numbers here were within 1 degree on all of them. You know, one might have said 149, 151, 65, 66, and that was all. What I did notice is on the older Spec 2s, they had like a blowdown of 45. This one's got a little lower exhaust port, so it's going to have a little more torque, a little less top end than the old Spec 2, but for the most part, yeah, it'll pull truggy a little bit better than the previous model. And this is a change I've seen in the specs. You know, well, okay, that'd be the newer engines. I think the FP01 was 45, and that was a fairly new engine. But then the newer speeds or whatever I checked, I can't even remember which one it was. But so the newer ones, they lowered it. So that kind of leads me to believe too that all the numbers were within a degree. So the extra crank timing they put in, really, this is just kind of a polish on this. It didn't really remove much material. So another thing I did notice on this is I've been doing it on all the engines, or trying to at least lately, is check the piston to head clearance. So at top dead center, how much clearance you have between the piston and head button. And it's easy to measure. You just measure down to the piston, you know, from top of the sleeve down to the piston, and then you just measure from the combustion chamber to the shims and subtract, and then that gives you the total. And this one had 15 thousandths piston to head clearance, and to me that's like, it should be like 10 thousandths more than that. It should be I'd say 24 to 26 thousandths for optimum, and it's gonna have too much compression. It's gonna detonate. You're gonna have erratic tuning. It's gonna come in pit lane idling high, run on at the end of the straightaway and such. So it's been a trend with different brands, not just OS. OS used to have really good piston head clearance. They were easy to work with and tune. This is going to make it a little more erratic, and I recommend adding 10 thousandths worth of shim. The thin brass shims are 0.1 millimeter, 4 thousandths, so you'd need at least 2 of the brass shims. This is a pretty common bore, so you could use even an Novarossi shim, or you know, the 8 thousandths shim. Might not even be quite enough. So I'd play around with it, at least if you're going to the track and doing some tuning and try and change the head shims and see what you notice. Typically you'd run if you're going to run more compression, similar to what it's at. Even at 20 thousandths, I recommend going to a pretty cold plug. So I don't get what's going on here with the engine brands increasing the compression. They feel good on the box. They'll just be you'll just like instant throttle response. It'll feel really good on the box with that higher compression, but on the track you're not going to see any performance gains. It's going to detonate. It's going to get hot. It's not good. I don't know, unless I'm missing something. I measured this, and I got a cheaper caliper here at home. So today I'll go grab it here. I brought home my expensive Mitutoyo caliper. I'm checking this with a depth gauge, you know, a depth mic here. So, because sometimes you can get a caliper, you can get it a little bit crooked and be off 2-3 thousandths or whatever. So I double checked my numbers, and they were right. And I checked it with a different caliper and a depth mic, which is more accurate, and I still got 15 thousandths piston to head clearance. I don't know if all the speeds are coming that way too, but I don't know. To me, it's going to be hard to tune. So all in all, besides the piston head clearance, if you fix that, I think this engine is going to be a pretty good runner. Although I think with the modifications on the crank and the sleeve, you're not going to be able to feel a difference between the stock, the stock XEB or Spec 2 or whatever is comparable, if it's the Flashpoint or whatever. If you have a similar engine with a bore and stroke from OS and it's the speed, you're probably not going to see a difference. These cuts are pretty minimal. They're not extreme or anything. This crank timing doesn't look like it's really taking much changing the crank timing, at least less than a degree. This cut here is not going to really do much. Honestly, it's kind of not really that good of craftsmanship with a burr there. You can burr there and a burr in the sleeve and stuff. It's kind of some shoddy work, but it's not going to really hinder performance. I could feel a little bit there too. It's not really going to hinder performance. It's just you're paying extra for kind of a exclusive engine here, and I don't know. It's not that impressive. So just my 2 cents. Although it's going to run fine, it's not going to be a bad running engine or anything. But that's about it on this one. Thanks for watching.